Hello friends, welcome. In this full tutorial I'm going to customize the Laravel breeze. So if I go to the register, I have added a username here, username field, and let's use the fake filler and say register, and now it's going to send us an email to verify the email here. So we sent a verification email. Just let's go, I used a mail trap, so let's go here. Here we have the email, and let's say verify email address, and now we are logged in. And the same if I come here and refresh. Okay, we can go to the profile, and here I added also the username. You can update that. Okay, let's go and log out, and let's say go and log in. Here I added also, we can sign in either using email or using the username, or we can sign in with a GitHub account or with a Google account. And let's say with a GitHub right now. And it's going to send us also verification email. And right now, if you go on the mail trap and see, because we sign in with a GitHub and is the first user, the first sign in, it's going to send us also the username, because it's going to generate the username based on the GitHub nickname, and also it's going to give us a new password for our web application. So here we have the username and the password, and let's say verify email address. Okay, now we can go to the profile and we can change that password. So copy that and update the password here, new password, and I'm going to change the password here, save. Okay, so it's saved. Good. Now the GitHub account is with this Gmail account, and let's log out, and I'm going to sign in using the Google with that Gmail. So I'm going to select this Gmail, which is also for the GitHub, and now it's going to redirect back and say this email uses a different method to log in. So we check if this account exists with that email. If we have a user with that email in our database, we are going to redirect back. And let's sign in now with a different Gmail. I'm going to select this one. Okay, it's going to send us a mail verification, and here it is. Also, of course, we have the username and the password, because it's going to create a new user from the Gmail. And as you can see, we have the username and the password. We send the username and the password only when we create a new user from the GitHub or Gmail, not from when we create a new user from the form. As you can see here, we just click the button below to verify your email address. But when we create a user from GitHub or Google, we send also the username and the password. So let's copy this and let's say verify email address, and let's go and update the password and also username, because it's auto-generated. And let's add the password here, and let's say save, and yeah, it's saved. Now this is also, the username is auto-generated because the Gmail has null for the username, so I have auto-generated that, and you can let's say update the username like this, and it's saved. Good. So that's it, what we are going to do. Also, you can log in a user with that username here, and let's say Laravel new custom breeze, and we need to install also the breeze here. So in the Laravel documentation, we can run the composer require Laravel/breeze. So first we need to navigate in the custom breeze, and let's paste that in. Then say PHP breeze install. Okay, I'm going to choose the plate, and let's say yes for testing. And then we need to run the PHP artisan migrate, npm install and npm run dev. I'm going to run the npm install and npm run dev because the migration I'm going to run after I'm going to change the user migration and add the username field on it. So let's run the npm install first. And then the npm run dev. But first I'm going to open this project with PHP Storm. Okay, and then let's run the npm run dev. Okay, let's open the project here, and I'm going to zoom it like this. And now let's add the username field also when we register. So for that, in the PHP Storm, I'm going to open first the migration. So let's search for users, and I'm going to copy the email because also the username is going to be string and unique. And let's say username, close this. Let's open also the user model, and in the protected fieldable, add the username here. Let's close. And now we need to modify the register blade. First, I'm going to open the auth.php in the routes. And for the register, we can see we have this registered user controller. And let's open that. We have the create method which returning the auth register. And let's open this plate. But before that, I'm going to add also the validation for the username in here. And let's say username is going to be required string, not email. Okay, max and unique to the user. And let's add in here, when we create, add also the username. Good. Let's close this, and now let's open the register blade. I'm going to close this one as well. And here we have the register blade. I'm going to copy the email field here, input, and paste it right here. I'm going to say username, and let's select all the email and replace with username. Also in the value is going to be username with capital. Type is going to be text. And I'm going to remove all the required we have here just to test the validation first. And let's come here. We have the username. If I say register, yeah, we have the username field is required. So let's register with John. And for the username, I'm going to say, oh, and one more thing, we need to run the migration now because we changed. So for that, let's open the .env file. And here we have the database name, which is based on the project name, but I'm going to remove because I have a breeze database name. And now let's run the PHP artisan migrate. And we're going to say fresh here. And I'm going to run the npm run dev. And now let's say John again. And John Doe for the username. John email or johndoe.com for password for the email, and for the password I'm going to add the password and also password. and we are logged in. Good. Log out, and let's say login again with John Doe and add the password. Yeah. Now log out, and let's work with that. Have also the username ability to log in. And let's open the auth. Inside the routes, for the login, we have the authenticate session controller. And this is going to return the auth login. So we need to change that to add also the ability for the username. And let's open that. So login blade. And here I'm going to say email or username. And let's select all the emails. I'm going to change the name for the input, and I'm going to say input type. Here in the value, I'm going to say email or username like this. The type is going to be text. And here for the errors, I'm going to say, let's say, first I'm going to add the email and also the username, because we are going to validate either the email or the username based on the choice. And with that, we are going to work on the controller. Here on the store, we don't have any logic. The logic is inside its login request. As you can see, it's calling here the request and the authenticate method. So let's open this login request. We have the function authorized returning true. Then we have the rules for the email. Okay. Then the authenticate method. Good. Now, originally the form request would log using the email, but we changed that the input type, and the authentication method does not know that request variable. So essentially we've got to figure out if we're dealing with a username or email, and then only validate or email or the username values, not both of them. So for that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to add the protected property here. So let's scroll up and let's say protected $, input type. And now I'm going to add a special form request function here named prepare for validation. So at the end, I'm going to add that function, protected function, prepare for validation. And now, which this will set up some data before we validate this method. And here now, I'm going to say $, this input type we created is going to be equal with, I'm going to call the filter var, and here I'm going to add, we are this input and input type, we are inside the request. And now I'm going to check this if is the valid email. I'm going to say filter validate email, and if that is okay, the default is going to be email, otherwise it's going to be username like this. So what this does is checking for the user inputted an email or some other string, and if it's email, we say email, otherwise we say username if the user input in the input type a string. Okay, now also we need to add the email or the username variable in the request array. For that, I'm going to call this merge, and I'm going to merge the $this input type property with $this input type. Okay, input type like this. So this one is adding email or the username variable into the request array. By default we have the input type, but we need email or username, so it's inserted here. And now let's scroll up to the validation, and here we have the email required string and email. Also we need to add here the if this exists or not, and why we don't have here. So if this exists on the users and on the email, but it's not going to be required always. It's going to be required only if we don't have the username, because if we have the username, we are going to log in with username. So for that I'm going to use the required without username. And now let's copy this and paste down there and say the username now is going to be required without the email, which means the username is going to be required only if we don't have the email, and the username is not going to be email. And also we're going to check if we have that in the users username like this. Then on the authenticate, instead of adding the email, we need to add this input type here, so which means either the email or the password or the username, sorry. And also here throw validation $this input type. And I think we are okay now. Let's come here and refresh. Let's say login, and let's remove that. So let's open the login blade again. And I don't want the required, and also the required in here. Let's come and refresh. Let's say login, and now the email field is required when the username is not present, and the username field is required when the email is not present. Let's add something here. Login. Now the selected username is invalid, so it's going to validate the string here for the username, not for the email. If we type email here, so let's say something, is going to validate the selected email is invalid. Okay, if we type the correct John Doe and invalid password, login, yeah, this credential does not match to our records. Also, if I say john@doe.com and some fake password, it's not. Now if I add the correct password, login, we are logged in. Very good. Let's log out and let's log in with a username by saying John Doe and the password. And let's say login. Yeah, we are logged in. Very good. So here is how we can use the email or username in here, the login with Laravel Breeze. I'm going to also change when we forgot the password, add either the email or username, and also when we reset in the password, to use either the email or the password. So I'm going to use the mail trap for the mail sender. So if you go and create new account, let's copy this. So on the inbox you can search, select the Laravel on the drop down, copy the code and let's open the .env file and replace the mail with that. So the mailer, host, port, username, password, and the encryption. Okay, then we need to change also the forgot password plate to use email or username. So let's do that. Let's open the forgot password plate, and here on the email address I'm going to say email or username, and it's going to be the same we had in the previous video for the login. So let's select all the emails here and replace with the input type. Here I'm going to say username, so email / username. The input type is going to be text, and for the errors we need to say email here and copy and paste for the username. Okay, and let's say username in here. Good. Let's close this and let's open the auth routes. So for the forgot password, we have this password reset link controller, and we have the create method which is written in that view, and then we have the store method which is validating the email. We need to add also the username here, and then it's going to send a reset link and add in the request only the email, but we need to add email or username. And when you're redirecting with status, with input, also here we need to add email or username, and the same down there. So let's start by creating here a variable, so $, and I'm going to name it input type, and I'm going to assign this with filter var, and I'm going to add the request. We have the request in here, so request input, and the name of the input is input type, and I'm going to check for to validate for the email. So let's say filter validate email, and if that is true, I'm going to say email, otherwise username. So if it's string, it's going to be username. Then we need to merge the input type with the request input. So let's say request. Okay, and merge, add an array $input type, the variable we created, with the request input type. Like this. Okay, and now for the validation, the same thing we have done in the previous video. The email is going to be required without the username. So if we have username, it's not going to be required. It's going to be email, and also I'm going to add the exists in the users table and the email column. And I'm going to copy this one and paste down there for the username. The username now is going to be required without the email. So if we have the email, we are not requiring the username. It's going to be text, it's going to be string. And if this exists in the users, username. Good. Also here we need to add either the username or email, and for that I'm going to add the $input type variable we created. The same in here and also here. And let's try. Let's open the browser and refresh first. We have email or username. In the mail we don't have any. So let's try and add. So in the table plus we have this John Doe user with username John Doe and the email john@doe.com. So let's copy the username and come here. I'm going to paste and remove one letter, and let's say email password reset link. Yeah, the selected username is invalid. The same I'm going to do for the email. I'm going to copy that, come here, let's paste and remove one letter here, and the selected mail is invalid. Okay, let's add the correct one, and let's say email password reset link, and now it's going to send the mail. We have email to password reset link. Come here, and yeah, we have that. And if we click, we navigate to this reset dash password, the token, and also we have the email here. Now it's up to you. If you like, I don't like that, I'm going to remove, because we are going to have either the email or the username here. Okay, so with that, now first we need to change this reset password plate and change this that email or username, and then the controller. So let's open for the reset password is this new password controller, and let's open that. And here we have the create method. Okay, then we have the store method, which is going to validate the token, the email, and the password. But we are going to validate the token, the email or username, and then send the password reset, request only the email or username, and down there the same thing. When we have the email, we need to change that. So let's create the variable input type, the same we have done in the previous controller, and let's assign with a filter var, add here the request input, and the name is going to be input type as well here, and add the filter validate email. If that is true, it's going to be email, otherwise it's going to be username. And then we need to add that variable. So let's merge request, merge, add an array, add the input type variable we created, and merge with request input type, like this. Okay, and now validate the email, and the email is going to be required without the username, or we can use the sometimes. So let's say I'm going to say here sometimes it's going to be required email, and also add if this exists in the user's email, like this. I'm going to copy that and paste down there for the username. Sometimes required is going to be string and exist in the user's username, like this. Okay, and then also here request only when we have the email. I'm going to add the input type variable we created, the same in here request, so the input type, and in here the input type. Okay, I think we are okay, so we add it here, and let's see now. Close this one, and let's delete the email, and let's try one more time to send with the username. Okay, let's come here, and I'm going to close this. Let's come here and open, reset the password, and we have the username. We need to change also the blade. So let's open the reset password blade, and here I'm going to say email or username. Select all email values and replace with input type. In the value I'm going to say email or username. Type is going to be text, and here is going to be email or username. So let's copy and say username here. Okay, refresh, and yeah, we have username or email or username. Now I want to remove this from here, and if you go to the Laravel.com documentation on the password, we have password customization, and here on the reset link customization we can just add this line in the auth service provider. So let's copy and do that also, and then we can test. So auth service provider, on the boot method, paste that line. We need to import the reset password class. Also change the link to, or link here, copy and paste it here. So http custom breeze.test / reset password, and for the we need to say slash and the token like this, because if I open the auth routes, we have the get reset password / token, not question token equal with the token. Okay, for that we just say that like this. And let's see one more time, because in the email right now we have the question mark email equal with the email, and let's delete this and send one more time with a username, or just, yeah, let's use a username. Okay, and now, yeah, we have only the token, and if I click reset password, we navigate here. We don't have the email. Now, if you like, you can do that. If you don't like, you can leave as it is. Add the username here, John Doe, and I'm going to, so the password we have in here, I'm going to copy the hash, and let's open the bcrypt online, and I'm going to hash verify here, add the hash in here and the password here, and I'm going to say verify hash. Yeah, it's matched. Now we have password. Let's change that to something else. Let's say 1 to 8. But first I'm going to check for validation on the username. I'm going to remove that, and let's say reset password. The selected username is invalid. Let's check for email. Yeah, the selected email is invalid, and now let's add the correct username and say 1 to 8, 1 to 8 again, and let's say reset password. And now we have been reset the password, and if I type the John Doe with the new password 1 to 8, login, yeah, we have logged in. And if I copy here the hash, now if I refresh, and let's copy the hash, paste it here, refresh also here, and let's go to the verifier and paste 1 to 8, verify, and yeah, we have changed that. And that's it, how we can also add the username when we have forgot the password and when we update the password. When I'm going to add the Socialite or project and log in either with GitHub or Google. Okay, so let's start by installing the Laravel Socialite package. So scroll down and let's see, we need to run the composer require Laravel/Socialite. Copy this and open the terminal and paste that command in. Then we need to add the configuration inside the config services.php for the auth providers. In this case, we have an example with GitHub. So let's copy this one and let's open the services inside the config. And down there, I'm going to add that one. And let's close the. So here we have for the GitHub, but as I said, I want also for the Google. So let's add one more for Google. And let's say Google here. Also, we need to change the name for the client ID and client secret. So let's say Google. Now the redirect URL is going to be /auth/GitHub here for the GitHub and the callback like this. For the Google is going to be the same, just change the provider to be Google. Let's say Google here. Okay, now let's add them in the .env file. So GitHub client ID, client secret, and the same for the Google. Let's copy this and let's open the .env file. And I'm going to add that one here. Also the secret. And the same for the Google. Okay. Now let's get the GitHub client ID, client secret, and the same for the Google. To do that, we need to go in the GitHub account and settings, developer settings, and create a new application. And I have created that just to save some time for you. And for the name, I added the Laravel Socialite homepage URL localhost 8000, and I added the localhost 8000 because the Google provider is not working with Laravel Valet. And for the authorizing callback, I added the auth GitHub callback, what we added in the services. So what we added here, auth GitHub callback for the GitHub and auth Google callback for the Google. Okay, and here now I have the client ID. So let's copy the client ID and paste it. Paste it here, and the client secret, and paste it here as well. And now let's go in the Google Cloud. You need to create a new project. So you can go here and create new project. I have created that. Then we need to go to the credentials and create credentials for the auth client ID. Select the web type, which is going to be web application. We need to add the URL, and I'm going to copy this URL we have here. And for the callback, I'm going to copy this one. So redirect URL, add this one, just change the provider, is going to be Google. Okay, let's say create. And now we have the client ID and client secret. So let's copy them and paste it here. Also the client secret. And now we are good to go. Let's say okay. Good. Next, we have the authentication and we have routing. So here we have an example. In the route, we just say route get for the auth redirect and add the callback and returning the Socialite facade calling driver. In this case, we have the GitHub and redirect. So let's do that. Let's copy this, but I'm going to create a controller, not using that in the web routes. So let's copy and let's open the web routes. And I'm going to paste it right here. And as I said, I'm going to create a controller for that. So let's open the terminal. And I'm going to say PHP artisan make controller. And I'm going to name it provider controller. But let's add this also in the auth directory. Okay, and let's close now. So here now I'm going to work to add that controller we created, which is the provider controller class, and the method is going to be let's say redirect. And let's do the same for the callback. So add the provider controller, and the method, let's name it callback. Okay. Now let's open the provider controller and create the methods. So public function, redirect, and public function callback. Good. Now for the redirect, we have this example, and let's copy that and paste it here. Import the Socialite facade. Okay. Now here the Socialite driver and calling the driver GitHub, but in our case we have also the Google. We need to work also with Google. And to change that based on the URL here, let's go back. We need to add a provider like this and accept the provider in the controller. And let's do the same for the callback. And now we need to accept that provider, to assign provider in here, and paste the provider also down there. So whenever we add auth, for example, Google redirect is going to redirect to the Google, or auth GitHub redirect is going to redirect to the GitHub. And the same for the callback. Okay. Now when we go to the redirect, is going to redirect to the provider and login page. Then we have an example for the callback to get the user from that driver. And let's do the same. We need the provider here, the assign provider. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to say tie and dump the user now, the assign user. Also here we need to add the provider, not just the GitHub. Okay, so we are going to get the user and tie and dump here when we redirect back. Good. Let's see now how it's going to work. Let's open, or we need to open with a local host, not with a breeze like this. So let's come here and let's open the terminal and let's run the PHP artisan serve. Okay. Open localhost 8000. And now let's navigate in the login page, and here we need to add a login link for the login with GitHub or Google. For that I have opened the Flowbyte, and here we have some social buttons. Let's copy this with GitHub, and I'm going to navigate in the login blade, And here I'm going to add a div first with a class to be with full flex, and I'm going to say justify center, and I'm going to add mx2, and inside I'm going to add that button. And let's do the same for the Google. Paste that in, just copy the Google button and paste that sign in with Google also. And let's see, we need to run the npm run dev also. So let's open the terminal one more time, new terminal, and let's say npm run dev. Okay. And now if I refresh, yeah, we have signed in with GitHub and signed in with Google. Now when we click here, I want to navigate in that URL we created earlier, to navigate to the redirect and call the Socialite driver the provider and redirect. So let's open the login blade again. Let's make first this an anchor tag and remove the type button and say href to be /auth/ in this case is GitHub /redirect. Okay, let's copy this and let's come down there. So make this anchor tag and let's paste that in. Change the GitHub provider to be Google provider. Good. Okay, now let's sign in with the GitHub here and let's authorize. You are redirecting back, and now we have here the dump the user, which is nickname, ID, and this nickname we are going to use to add the username field we have in the users migration. We have the name, email, avatar also, and token, refresh token, and so on. Good. Let's go back and let's do the same test with Google now. Sign in with Google. Let's choose this account. Yeah, the same thing, but just for the nickname now, which we are going to use for the username, this is null. So we are going to check when we add the username if the nickname is null. Okay, let's go to the Socialite, and here we have an example to update or create here. So he's going to check for the GitHub ID with the GitHub user get from the driver, and if this GitHub ID is what we have in the GitHub user ID, is going to update the user. Otherwise, it's going to create a new user with these credentials. Okay. Let's copy for now because we are going to change that, and open the controller, which is the provider controller, and paste it here. We need to import the user model, also the auth. Okay, here we have user. Let's make this not GitHub user, let's make a Socialite or just social user, and let's copy that and select all the GitHub users and paste that in. Okay, here we have the GitHub ID. We don't have that in the users migration. We need to add that, but not GitHub. We are going to change that to be provider. And also here, let's change the provider token and GitHub refresh token if you need add it, or I'm not going to add that, but I'm going to remove. Also, we need to add the driver, which the provider, which provider is. So I'm going to add it here. So let's say provider, which is going to be what provider we have here. So for example, Google or GitHub in our case. And let's add the provider ID, provider, and the provider token in the users migration and add them. So also we need to make the password nullable, and then let's say $table, which is going to be string for the provider, and also the provider is going to be nullable, because if we are registered with form, we are not going to use that. And let's copy this and paste down there one more time. So provider ID, and also the provider token. Okay, now we have that. Let's add also the provider ID and provider token in the user fieldable. So let's close this and let's open the user model and add here the provider ID, and also the provider token. Good. Let's close this. So we get the user, then we're going to check if the user is in our user model with, if the user with this provider ID, we get the social user ID here, and also the same provider. We are going to update, otherwise it's going to create, and then it's going to call the auth login with this user and return redirect to the dashboard. Okay, here we have the table plus and we don't have any users yet. So let's go and check now if we can log in with a user here. Let's refresh, hard refresh. Let's go to the login page and let's sign in with GitHub first. And we have an error. The username field doesn't have the default value. Yeah, we have that error because we have the username in the user migration, and let's add that. So let's say a username, and I'm going to say $ social user username. Not username, but nickname we have here. Like this. And let's refresh one more time. Let's sign in with GitHub. And yeah, we are signed in and we are logged in and redirected to the dashboard. Very good. Let's navigate in here and let's refresh. We have a name, username, email, provider GitHub, provider ID, and the provider token. Good. Now let's go back, log out, and let's log in with Google. Sign in with Google. The same, we have the column username cannot be null because we get the nickname null here on the Google we saw earlier. So what we need to do is to check if the nickname is null or not. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to open so let's open the user model, and here I'm going to create a new static method. So let's say public static function, and let's name it generate username, like this. And here we need to accept the username. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to check for if that is null. So let's say if the username we added here is null, I'm going to generate a new random username. So let's say username to be equal with str, and let's import that lower or lowercase, and also str random, and let's paste 8 characters. Okay, I'm going to change, if this is null, I'm going to create a new random username, Now, if that is not null, I'm going to check also if the username, let's say if the user where the username, and add the username here, and if that exists, so if we have user with what we put here, I'm going to create a new unique username. So let's say down there, $, new username is going to be equal with the username we have here, and I'm going to add one more, or let's say 5 more random strings. So let's say str lower, and also again str random, and let's add 3 more characters here. Okay, and then I'm going to say $username. I'm going to assign the username with the self, called the self generate username, and pass in here the new username we have here, and this is going to be unique, and then I'm going to return that. So let's return the username, $username here. Okay, with that now we can come here and say, let's cut and let's say user generate username, and pass here the social user nickname. If that is null, it's going to make the logic to generate a new unique username. And let's try now. Let's go back, refresh. If I open the table plus, we don't have any user yet. If I say sign in with Google, we have a duplicate entry for the Laravel 2021 gmail.com, which means we have signed in with this GitHub account which has that email. And let's come here, yeah. And also when we sign in with Google, the Google account is with that email, as you can see. So we need to make some logic there. So let's open here, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to say try and catch first. I'm going to try and then pass the user in here, and I'm going to catch for the, if we have any error, catch at the exception, $e, and let's return. I'm going to return redirect to the, not this, but just to the slash, redirect slash login. We are going to redirect back to the login page. Okay, instead of doing something like this, let's remove this one. And here first I'm going to check if and add the user where the email is equal with this provider, not provider, the social user email. Okay, or we can use the get email. And if that user exists, I'm going to return a redirect to the login. So let's say return a redirect to the login slash login, but I'm going to redirect with errors. So let's say with errors, and I'm going to say for the email, let's say something like this, this email uses a different method to log in. Okay, now if I save this and let's go and try one more time with Google. Yeah, this email now uses a different method to log in. Good. We are okay with that. Now what I'm going to do else, we check for the email. I'm going to also create a user variable and assign with user where, and add here an array at provider, which is going to be $provider we have here, and also the provider ID, which is going to be the social user ID. Okay, and here I'm going to say get the first one. Okay, now we get the user. If we have that user with the provider and the social provider ID, I'm going to call just auth login and add the user and also redirect to the dashboard. So let's move up here. But if we don't have a user, so let's say an if statement again, if we don't have the user, we need to create that. So let's say $user is going to be equal with user create, and add here an array. Now the name is going to be $social user, and let's use the get name. For the email, the same thing, social user get email, also the username, which is going to be $social user get nickname. But what I said is here we need to call the user, generate username and paste that in. Okay, add the provider now, provider, which is going to be $provider. We need the provider ID, which is going to be $social user get ID, and the last one is the token. So let's say provider token $social user get token. We don't have the get token, just say token here. Let's add the email verified at to be now, because if we are going to create a new user from GitHub or Google, the email is verified. And I think we are okay. So we create a user variable and assign with a user where provider is the provider and Socialite provider ID is this social user ID. And if we don't have a user here, we assign the user with a new user we created, and then log in the user and redirect back. Good. Come here and refresh, and I'm going to delete also this one now, so we don't have any user in the database. Come here and refresh, sign in with GitHub. Let's sign in with Google. Yeah, we have the email uses a different method. Okay. Let's come here and refresh. Let's delete, and let's see if we can sign in with Google now. Yeah, we are here. Okay, refresh. Now for the username, we have this username generated from that method we created. Okay, the provider is Google, and the provider ID is this ID, provider token is this token. Okay, let's also delete this one. And what I'm going to do is, so if I refresh, we don't have a user. Let's go and register a new user with a form with that email. So I'm going to say something like this, John Doe, and for the email, I'm going to add the Laravel 2021 gmail.com, add the password, add the password again, and let's say register. Good. If I log out now and let's take and sign in, so we have that user generated from the form. Now if I say sign in with GitHub, yeah, the email use different method to log in. So let's customize one more thing in our Breeze package. Right now I don't have any user here, so let's go and sign in with Google, and I'm going to choose this email. Good. And if I refresh now, we have this user here. Good. We have this username which is generated automatically, and for example, if I want to update that, we need to go here and we need to add one more field for the username and also for the password. Now here we need the current password, but when we create a new user from the GitHub or Google, the password is going to be null, as you can see here. And one way is to check on the update password section if the current password, if the user password is null, hide this and just show the new password and password confirmation. And also when we update on the update password controller, just check if the password is null. But I'm going to use another way. I'm going to implement the email verification, and when we send the email verification, I'm going to generate a new password and send that with the email verification, and the user can update the password by typing that password we sent with email. Okay. Also, I have opened the mytrap.io here. If you go to the Laravel documentation and search for email verification, what we need to do is just implement the most verify email and add the most verify email up here. Use that. So let's open the user model, and I'm going to implement the most verify email, and let's uncomment this. Okay, and then what we need to do is to send notification when we create a new user. So here we have an example, send email verification notification, and let's copy that. Here we have the request user, but let's open the provider controller, and here we have the user. And let's say when we create new user, I'm going to remove the email verified. And when we create new user, I'm going to call the user and send email verification notification. And as I said, I want to send also the password there, but let's test for now. I'm going to delete this one, and let's come here, refresh. Let's sign in with Google, and now it's going to send the email. Okay. If I come here, yeah, here we have that email, and here is the email. If I click verify email address, good. So if I refresh also here, okay. And if I come and refresh, we have the email verified that. Very good. Now what I said is that I want to send also the password string here, and the user can copy that password and update the password here. Now here, when on the Laravel.com, we scroll down, we have the customization, and here we have the verify email. Let's copy that and we need to add this on the auth service provider. So let's do the same. Open the auth service provider, and on the boot method, paste that in. We need to import the verify email and also the new mail message. And as I said, I want to send the password, but I don't want to send the password always. So for example, if I register a new user from here, the user is going to know the password because it's going to add here. So when we register a user from the form, I don't want to send the password on the mail. I want only to send the password when we generate a new when we create a new user from the Google or GitHub. And for that, we need to check here to add a line. So let's say here, line if, and here accept the boolean, as you can see. Okay, so here now I'm going to add the $sign notifiable, and I'm going to check for the provider. If we have a provider, it means the user is created by either the GitHub or Google. And if that is true, I want to send the password. So let's say here, I'm going to say, please update the password. Update your password, which is, and concatenate with the password we are going to send. So let's say password here. And also I'm going to copy and paste this line. And also I'm going to add for the username. So let's say here username. And username like this. Now, if I leave as it is right now, and let's go, let's refresh, and I'm going to delete this again and come here, refresh, go to the login page, and I'm going to sign in with Google. Okay, if I come here and we have this email, now as you can see that we have this, please update your username, which is this one, but the password is empty, and that is because on the provider, and let's close now this one, on the provider, when we create a user, the user has only the name, email, username, provider ID, and the token, but the password is null. So if I open the user's migration, we can see the password is null. And let's remove this. We added the password null because when we create here, the leave also null the password. But now I'm going to change that, and I'm going to run. So let's open the terminal right now, and I'm going to run the artisan migrate fresh. Very good. And let's close now. And here now, when we create the user, I'm going to create a new password, and let's say $sign password equal with, without str string, and call the random 12 characters, and paste the password here. Password, and say $sign password. And with that now, if I come here, refresh, we don't have a user because we just added a migrate fresh. Let's come here, and let's say login with Google. Let's choose this one now. Okay, come here. And as you can see now, the password is this password. Good. But also in the database, if I refresh, the password is this string, as you can see. And I don't want that. I want to add the hash password. So for that, after we send in the email verification notification, I'm going to use user update, and I'm going to update the password to be and call hash make and pass in here the password. And now with that, if I come here and let's delete one more time this user, try again to log in with sign in with Google, choose this one. Okay, come here. Yeah, right now this is the user, sorry, the password, but if I come here and refresh, now here the password is hashed, as you can see. Okay, now let's copy this and let's say verify email address. Okay, if I refresh also here the same, and let's update. Let's go to profile and paste that password, and let's say just the password string. Click save, and we saved, as you can see. Okay, now the last thing is to add for the username, and let's remove this one now, and let's open the profile update profile information. And here when we have the name, I'm going to copy and add one more field for the username. So let's select all of them and say username. Just here is going to be name for username, and the value is going to be username. And let's go here, and yeah, we have the username. But now we need to open also the update. So let's search for profile, update request, profile controller, and here we have the request user field and added the request validated. So we need to go to the profile update request and see what fields we have. We have the name and the email. Let's copy the email and paste it one more time and update this to be username, which is going to be not email, but it's going to be string max 255 and role unique to the user class. Now if I refresh and let's say I want to be this username, save, and it's saved, as you can see now. And of course if I come here and refresh, yeah, good, now we have everything. Okay, let's log out. And just one more thing we need to do is, if I go and log in again with this email, I want to show you one error I did in the previous video. We have this email uses a different method to login, and that's it, because on the, let's open the provider controller again. Here we get the user, and first thing we check if in the user exists the user with this email. But first we need to check, so let's cut this. First we need to check if the user with this provider and then the social user ID exists. Otherwise, if not exists, down there we are going to create one. But before we create it, we are going to check here now. Here we need to check if the user where the email is this email, and if that exists, return. Otherwise, we are going to create a new user. And let's come here and refresh and try one more time. Let's choose this. Okay. Go to the profile, and yeah. Also, what I want to do is, let's go and sign in now with GitHub. Good. Let's come here. Let's verify the email. And let's copy this and change. So come here, profile, the username, I'm going to leave it, just update the password. Click save and it's saved. Okay. Now the password is updated. If I go back and refresh here, everything okay. Log out and let's register a new user. Fake filler, register. Good. Now if I come here, as you can see that this one we have only the click the button below to verify the email address. We don't have that password and username when we create a new user from the form. Good friends, that's it about this video. I hope you enjoy and see you in the next one. All the best. Thank you very much.